Russian troops have entered the city of Kurakhov in eastern Donetsk region, and planted the Russian flag on one of the high-rise residential buildings. The relevant footage has been distributed on Russian Telegram channels. It should be noted that the battles for the city have been going on for several months. In the past few days, the Russian army improved its position in Kurakhov and was able to capture a large part of the city. Ukraine confirmed that the Russian army captured part of the city.
Ethnic enclaves formed by extended families of migrant workers can be hotbeds for the spread of extremist ideologies, former Russian president and the deputy chair of the country's Security Council, Dmitry Medvedev, believes. Medvedev made the remarks during a meeting to address migration and potential improvements to the country's legislation in this field. Extended families brought in by migrant workers create various issues in Russia, he said. The prolonged stay of migrant workers' family members puts a very serious strain on the social sphere of our country, and in some cases it causes tensions between ethnic groups, Medvedev stated. Some of the migrants and their family members do not work or study anywhere and do not want to comply with the norms of Russian legislation, the former president observed. Ethnic enclaves that emerge can become breeding grounds for extremism, he warned. More than 40% of some 200,000 migrant children currently studying in Russia demonstrate insufficient knowledge of the Russian language, Medvedev stated. Earlier this month, Russia introduced new rules requiring the children of migrants to undergo mandatory Russian language tests. The system is expected to be implemented next spring, with those who fail being barred from attending regular schools. Over the past few months, Russia has tightened migration laws with multiple new initiatives adopted or considered by the country's parliament. Medvedev has been among the most vocal proponents of such changes, arguing that migrants who do not work or study in the country should ultimately leave. In September, the ex-president suggested that seasonal migrant workers should be prohibited from bringing in their families. I am a proponent of this, as applied to schools, migrant families and enclaves. Of course, we won't be able to overcome every tendency there, but what can be done? If a person comes to us for seasonal work, why the hell does he drag his family along with him? Medvedev said at the time. Russia has sent many immigrants who recently received citizenship to join the military fighting in Ukraine. Military service is mandatory in Russia for all men aged 18 to 27, although Russia has vastly widened the scope of who it seeks to see in the military after huge losses suffered in its war against Ukraine. Russia has sought to replenish its military ranks through other means, including the recruitment of migrants and new Russian citizens, likely hoping to avoid changing the rules on conscript deployment or a repeat of the unpopular mobilization drive in the fall of 2022.
Ukrainian forces have lost about half of the territory they captured in Russia's Kursk region. US officials estimate that if Russia steps up efforts to push back Ukrainian forces from the start of the new year, the Ukrainian military could be forced to withdraw from Kursk by spring 2025 to avoid the risk of encirclement. That could deprive Kiev of important leverage in ceasefire talks with Russia. This is reported by Bloomberg. The Ukrainian army is already facing personnel shortages and uncertainty about future supplies from the United States and other allies, while trying to resist a Russian offensive in the east. In the Kursk region, where Ukrainian troops have captured part of the territory, they are opposed by about 12,000 North Korean soldiers who support Russian forces. If Moscow launches a more coordinated effort to push Ukrainian forces out of the region, it could happen as early as next month. In that case, US officials estimate Ukrainian forces could hold the area only until spring before being forced to retreat or risking encirclement. This period is crucial, as Ukrainian officials plan to use the territory captured in the Kursk region as leverage in future negotiations. Despite statements by President-elect Donald Trump, who took office on January 20th, that he wants to end the war as soon as possible, reaching a ceasefire agreement could take several months due to the complexity of the situation for both sides. Russian President Vladimir Putin said on Thursday, December 26th, that he was unaware of the Trump administration's proposal to freeze the war in exchange for guarantees that Ukraine would not join NATO for decades to come. He also stressed that such an agreement would not satisfy Russia. With Russia's advantage on the battlefield, it could drag out negotiations to try to seize more territory before a potential ceasefire can solidify the front line. Meanwhile, Ukrainian forces have managed to hold on to positions in the Kursk region longer than expected, thanks to US permission to use long-range missiles to strike Russian territory, one official said. Another official noted that Ukraine's goal in Kursk Oblast was not to hold territory, but to create a shock effect from a counteroffensive and wear down Russian forces. In that case, the retreat could be presented as a tactical success. Two other officials expressed hope that Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelenski would decide to withdraw from Kursk Oblast in time to avoid heavy losses. Despite the possibility of a Ukraine withdrawal, the operation has already inflicted significant losses on both Russian and North Korean units. John Kirby, a spokesman for the US National Security Council, told reporters on Friday that North Korean forces, backed by Russia, are carrying out intensive attacks on Ukrainian positions in the Kursk region. As a result, more than 1,000 people have been killed and wounded in the past week alone.